Hi friends, hope you're doing well. We're going to be studying through 2 Corinthians chapter 8. So if you have your Bible, please open it up and we'll jump in there. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, share it with other people. It does help them to at least put my videos out there, so that would be awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So it says, now brethren, we wish to make known to you the grace of God which has been given in the churches of Macedonia, that in a great ordeal of affliction, their abundance of joy and their deep poverty overflowing in the wealth of their liberality. For I testify that according to their ability and beyond their ability, they gave of their own accord, begging us with much urging for the favor of participation in the support of the saints, and this not as we had expected, but they first gave themselves to the Lord and to us by the will of God. So we urged Titus that as he had previously made a beginning, so that he would also complete in you this gracious work as well. But just as you abound in everything, in faith, in utterance, in knowledge, and in all earnestness, and in the love we inspired in you, see that you abound in this gracious work also. I am not speaking this on as a commandment, but as proving through the earnestness of others the sincerity of your love also. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you through your poverty might become rich. I give my opinion in this matter, for this is to your advantage, who were the first to begin a year ago, not only to do this, but so also desire to do it. But now finish doing it also, so that just as there was the readiness to desire it, so there may also be the completion of it by your ability. For if the readiness is present, it is acceptable according to what a person has, not according to what a person does not have. So that's important to remember. So he's talking about basically in their giving. They had made seems like a pledge to give to the church in Jerusalem, as we'll know. But he said, hey, you're giving to other people. You've made this pledge. Let's follow through on this pledge. And what you wanted to give, let's do it in a proper way, in an abundant way. And he's basically saying, hey, you're going to fulfill what you've said you were going to do, and I'm just giving you the opportunity to do that. And we got to remember that when we're giving, sometimes it's not always easy, because sometimes you're living, you got your bills to pay and everything else. But it is something as Christians we do, and that is that we need to always remember that it's our job, our calling to give where we can and when we can. And that's an important verse to remember, verse 12, where he says, that we give according to what a person has, not what according doesn't have. So you never want people to put pressure on you and say, hey, well, hey, you're not giving your fair share over here. You need to give what you can for sure, and do so with a loving heart. And you got to remember that what you're giving is you're giving to the Lord. Even though you're giving to an organization, the reality is you're giving to the Lord, because He's the one that accounts that. You got to remember, like when Peter was confronted by the three companions that was sent from Cornelius, the angel. Remember what the angel said to Cornelius. He said that hey, God has seen your alms and you're giving to the poor, and it's gone up before you as a memorial. God sees those. So even though he was giving to this group over here, God was the one who took the account of that giving. And so when you give to the church, or you give to this organization, or you give to whatever it is you're giving, God takes account of that. And it's a memorial that it goes up before you. So if you're giving here or you're giving there, remember that it's a giving that God takes into account. He doesn't lose track of anything. And so when you're giving, remember, even though you're giving to this organization or this church, which makes you realize who you're giving to is important. So you don't want to give your money to an organization that is doing evil stuff. If you're giving your money to somebody who's doing some crazy stuff with it, not good. You want to give it to organizations that hopefully is, you're never going to find a perfect organization out there, but if you're giving money to one, you want to do it in a way that is beneficial and pleasing in God's sight. All right, and that's kind of what he's dealing with here, and he's going this whole process. It's basically about giving, and that's really the essence of this whole chapter. It's really about, so that we can glean from it is that we also need to give, and we need to do it in a way that is, is right. But you never want to have somebody put pressure on somebody else, or have somebody put pressure on you to give what you don't have, but give what you can, and be generous, and remember that there's a lot of hurting people out there that need that. And so give, find good organizations to give to. If it's your local church, get your local church. But there's a lot of things that can go on with that too, that I can go on. How the local church is built now isn't necessarily how the church then was built, but that's another thing, another issue. But there's a lot of things that can be changed and needs to change, which is why we see the things you see going on right now. But anyway, he says. For this is not for the ease of others, but and for your affection, but by the way of equality. At this present time, your abundance being a supply for their need, so that their abundance may also be a supply for your need, that they may be equality, or there may be equality. As it is written, he who gathers much did not have too much, and he who did not gather too little had no lack. Or gathered little had no lack. Going back to Exodus, where he's referencing back to when they were going out and gathering manna, and people who gathered a lot didn't have too much, and those who gathered a little didn't have too little. And God provided exactly what you needed, even though people were trying to hoard a little bit. Other people didn't get enough for whatever reason. God made it just enough, and that's God's economy. God's economy is always perfect. Whereas our economy, greedy, lazy, whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, God balances out the scales, and He gets everything right. Even though we a lot of times we're, looking for our benefit, or looking for whatever it is. There's always the things of the world, that influences our behavior and actions and thoughts. But in God's economy, it's always perfect, and that's where we always want to be. So we always want to be walking in God's economy. We want to have our mind thinking like God's economy, be generous, be giving. There's some people who give you something and man, they'll grudgingly hate you or have an attitude, it's like, well, then why'd you give it to me? If you got a problem, you just you get this angst now, and why'd you give it to me in the first place? You'd rather that person not give you something. You ever had a person do that? It's like they give you something, act of generosity, and then it's like from that day on, it's like almost like they spite you, I hate you. It's like they have a angst against you. It's like you'd rather them not give you anything. Then it's like I don't want anything, and that's why most of the times somebody wants to give you something, you just it's best not to even take it. Because you never know where that person, unless you know that person, they're not like that. Because you find a lot of people want to be generous, but they're not. They can't. It's in them unless there's something in it for them. They just can't do it. Whereas you find someone who has a genuine giving heart, yeah, they give you the shirt off their back, and it's no problem at all. They won't have no animosity towards you at all. But you got other people not like that at all. So you have to be careful receiving gifts. You find a lot of people, especially people that's in so-called ministry, you'll find a lot of times they got the hand out there a lot, and it becomes almost like second nature from where they can never even, they don't even think about it anymore. It's like somebody gives them something. It's just like, okay, it's like expected almost, It's like, you never want to put yourself in that position. Remember, always, it's better to give than to receive. And I would always caution you in that sense, it's better to be the giver than the receiver. And because you never know who that other person is and how they are. They may act generous, but in fact, their heart, they may hate you after they give you, $5 or something. So, don't accept every gift that's given to you, and don't necessarily mean you have to turn it away, but try to have some discernment in that. Wisdom that not everybody's generous, even though they may act like they are. It's always better to give than to receive if you can. So, anyway, just my humanly advice for you on that one. But he says, verse 16. But thanks be to God who puts the same earnestness on your behalf on the heart of Titus, for he has not only accepted our appeal, but being himself very earnest, he has gone to you on his own accord. We have sent along with him the brethren, whose fame in the things of the gospel is spread throughout all the churches, and not only this, but He has also been appointed by the churches to travel with us in the gracious work which is being administered by us for the glory of the Lord himself, and to show our readiness. A lot of people speculate, who is that? Could be Apollos. I mean, that seems to be practical, most likely, but who knows? It doesn't actually say. Anyway, taking precautions so that no one will discredit us in our administration of this generous gift, for we have regard for what is honorable, not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of men. We have sent with them our brother, whom we have often tested and found diligent in many things, but now even more diligent because of his great confidence in you. As for Titus, he is my partner and fellow worker among you. As for our brethren, they are messengers of the churches to a glory to Christ. Therefore, openly before the churches, show them the proof of your love and of our reason for the boasting about you. Basically, just reiterating to them about their promises to give. Make sure it's done in an appropriate way, bountiful giving of what they said they were going to give, charitably, and that's what he's talking about. And and also what he's mentioning is that, hey, we sent along one of our brethren to make sure, hey, nobody's taking advantage of you, nobody's taking your money and going off and spending it in a way that's like you see some people doing in churches, and some false organizations, who take your money and they run off with it, and they're driving around. And I was listening to a story just recently, and there was a pastor, and they were talking about it, and he got in a conflict or something at the altercation, and he wound up getting shot and killed, And in it, you're sitting there saying he was a pastor of a church, and I was sitting there reading the article, and it was like, and he goes on to say that he was driving a BMW. It's like, who drives a BMW? And because in America, I mean, in Europe, everybody's got a BMW, it seems like, but in America, not so much. And it's like, especially if you're operating on a pastor's salary, unless you're living way above and beyond your means, unless it's a really old one, but that doesn't seem to be the case sometimes. So like I said, not everybody who's in the church is actually a Christian. And some people who may be a Christian, but how they're living, is not honorable. And so what Paul was doing here is saying, hey, we're sending along this brother just to make sure, hey, nothing's happening to your gift. So there's nothing wrong with verifying that your gift is being used appropriately, is what I'm getting to. Make sure that you're, when you give, it's okay to verify that. And if you're not giving a blank check to a pastor who you find out, he's got 3 properties, he's got, 4 cars and, this kind of stuff. He's living way better than most people. There's a problem. And just because he's a pastor doesn't mean he shouldn't be called out on it, So there are those kind of people in the church, in churches. So you'll find that sometimes. So yeah, along with it, there should be accountability. When you give money, it's nothing wrong with having accountability there. It's not a blank check to just go do what you want with somebody else's money. So if you're going to ask for people's money, then you need to be accountable for that. And that's, Paul is bringing that out. He's basically saying, look, hey, we're being accountable with your stuff. We're taking it serious, and this person that we're sending with it, he's a brother of ours, and he's somebody who's diligent, and we can trust him. He's loyal, he's an honest guy. So anyway, that's one way of doing it. So things that we can glean from it would be that, number one, it's okay to double check on, check up on the people that you're giving your money to, that they're doing it, using it for the right, appropriate ways, and not taking advantage of people. Number two is that when you give charitably. And number 3 is, when you're giving to the Lord, even though you may be giving different organizations or people, you give a $20 bill to a homeless guy on the street, in reality, you're giving to the Lord. Not that he's God, but you're giving to the Lord in the work of God, because how do you know that $20 bill or $10 bill that you give that guy, or whatever it is, might not just help him get something to eat that day, and just help him one more day through it, or help her one more day. And somebody else is giving them one more day, and then, you never know. And then, a month from now, 2 months from now, their whole life may turn around. They may completely have a transformation of their life. So a lot of people say, oh, I don't give my money to them because they just go off and get drunk or whatever, or I don't give my money to no churches because they just take it and use it for their own full. It's like, yeah, there's some criminals out there. There are guys driving BMWs and Mercedes, when pastors or something. Yeah, they've taken advantage of it. There's well-known, notable people, that's in ministries that are, making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. I mean, that we know of. that's come out publicly. Yeah, that's crazy. That's, yeah, they're taking advantage of people, no doubt about it. And they can sit back and say they're not, but they are. And yeah, you're going to have those kind of people, even well-known people. They'll have to answer that between them and God. But when we give to somebody and we're giving to a church, remember, you're doing it out of your faith and your love for God. And what's used in that money or where it goes, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have no control over that. So keep that in mind, that just because it's used in some way and you find out later, does not mean that God says that that's a dishonorable, charitable thing you did, No, it's charitable. It's a good thing. And like I said, he takes account of all the giving that we do. And just like, he told Cornelius, hey, your alms have come up before you as a memorial. He knew about it. He knew what he was giving. He knew what he was doing with his money. And, in the same sense, what we give is also a memorial that goes up before us. So give charitably, give when you can, give of what you can, not what you don't have, but what you have. And do it in a way that, is honoring to God and is helpful to people. If that means giving to your local church, also giving to people that may need it, that you're able to, what you can, when you can. But you only give what you can, not what you can't. You don't ever feel obligated that somehow, this is, God expects 10%, well, maybe not. If you got a single person or a mother or whatever, there's no way she can give 10%. And a lot of people try to make them feel guilty. It's like, she can't do that. She can only give 1%. Maybe she can't give anything. Or he can't. You don't know his situation either. So you don't ever want to put somebody in a way where you feel like, oh, because you're giving and they're not. Somehow you don't know their situation. So remember, as Christians, we not only be charitable in our giving, but we need to be charitable in how we look to other people and how we treat them. And what you find a lot of times, people who give a lot of money, sometimes they're put in positions of authority or power because of their giving, when spiritually they're very immature. They're not where they need to be, but their giving puts them in that position too. So, and they're very judgmental sometimes. So you gotta be careful. I've seen that firsthand. So, be careful of that. Don't ever put yourself in that situation. Just because you're able to give doesn't mean the other guy, or the lady, or whatever is able to do the same. You need to remember it. Not everybody walks in your shoes. Nobody has the same blessings. So, yeah, be charitable, be patient, be loving, be kind, be like what God has called us to be. Agents for, salt and light to the world. He didn't call us to be vinegar and darkness. He calls us to be salt and light. So let's do that. And it starts with love, compassion. Having compassion for other people, empathy. Those are important. Anyway, God bless you. Be safe. Keep looking up. And remember to love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. We'll see you.